There's a new key date in the Brexit crisis. British Prime Minister Theresa May says the vote on the deal with the EU will go ahead during the week of January 14th. Now, you might recall May put off a scheduled vote on the issue last week due to a lack of support within her own party. CBC's Briar Stewart is on the story live from London. The British Prime Minister made an impassioned speech earlier today. Briar, what did she underline?
Well, Suhanna, really the whole point of Theresa May's speech this afternoon was to try to quell some of the growing calls for holding a second referendum. And these calls have been growing over recent days because of the deadlock that still surrounds this deal and the fact that May hasn't been able to secure any meaningful concessions from the EU. Despite that trip she took to Brussels last week, she wasn't able to come back and point to any big improvements with the deal. So that's why you're hearing more calls, not only from the opposition, but from people within her own party for a second referendum. During her speech this afternoon, she said that she has no plans on holding a second vote. Not only did she say would it betray voters who voted last time around, but she thought it would divide the country and it really wouldn't leave the UK in any better of a position than it is now. Take a listen.
Finally, let us not break faith with the British people by trying to stage another referendum. Another vote which would do irreparable damage to the integrity of our politics. It would say to millions who trusted in democracy that our democracy does not deliver. Another vote which would likely leave us no further forward than the last. And another vote which would further divide our country at the very moment we should be working to unite it.
Now, she also said she's going to be taking the next couple of weeks to be working to try to make the deal even better, to work on the issue of the backstop, which remains the most contentious part of this deal. And she did say that they plan on having a vote on this deal on the week of January 14th.
Briar, you can always expect some cheeky squabbling in the House, and we certainly heard lots of reaction there. What's being said?
Yeah, so Hannah, there was some cheek and there was also quite a bit of heckling. At some points, the speaker had to stop and tell people to be quiet so she could actually finish what she was saying. And after she was done, she faced some tough questions, and not only from the opposition parties, but also from some of her own party members. There were questions about why she's not holding this vote before Christmas. Why isn't she encouraging more debate on the deal now? Why not have a separate vote looking at some of the different other options being considered instead of this deal particularly. But perhaps the most scathing criticism she faced was from the Labour Party leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Take a listen.
We face an unprecedented situation. The Prime Minister has led us into a national crisis. And if any more evidence was needed of why we face this grave situation, the Prime Minister demonstrated it last week's summit.
Now, Theresa May responded to all of the questions that were thrown at her. And one of the questions related to what happens if there's no deal. What steps is the government taking to prepare for that? And she said that they are stepping up basically the plan B. What happens if comes March 29th when the UK is scheduled to withdraw from the EU? What happens then if there's no deal? And she said that meetings are being held regularly to address this issue, and that in the new year they'll be held even more often to make sure that the UK is prepared if it ends up in that scenario.